Hey everybody, Arnaldo here broadcasting from Fidelio's Frequency. Welcome to my channel and welcome to another video on new releases. I'm going to share my thoughts and opinions about 6 records that I have been spinning over the course of the last 6 weeks. So let's get started with probably what is the most high profile release of this batch. And it was a record that was released in physical format in the least assuming manner. Probably there was no real marketing plan rollout for the release of this album. It was not announced. It just showed up in stores, actually in a very peculiar way. Customers at Third Man record stores in Nashville, Detroit, I believe also London, received a nondescript album as a free gift with any purchase. Plain white label record inserted in a die cut white sleeve, no titles, no credits, no name. That is probably a hint for you guys to understand that I'm talking about the Jack White new album called No Name. These copies started appearing around mid-July, unannounced, as I said. Customers brought them home and realized actually that it was the new Jack White record, No Name. And fast forward to August 2nd, when the album was made available on all streaming services, and a pre-order was announced for the black vinyl version, set for release on September 13th. Not only, but starting from August 2nd all the way through probably a few days ago, several stores, indie stores, started receiving a blue exclusive limited edition, some say to 2,000, of a blue smoky translucent version of the album. And I was lucky enough to snag a copy at my local indie retailer. Jack White, No Name, the 6th album, solo album by Jack White since the dissolution of the White Stripes, or should I say since Meg White decided to retire from the music industry. I have to say this is probably one of, in my opinion, one of the strongest solo efforts by Jack White. A return to the sound and the attitude of the White Stripes. Very straightforward, not too many overdubs, maybe a few keyboards here and there, piano, but just classic blues rock, garage rock, punk blues, fantastic riffs. Probably Jack White, or probably no one else, will be able to write an iconic riff as Seven Nation Army, but there are quite a few on here that get very close. Some of my favorite tracks on the album: What's the Rumpus, Tonight Was a Long Time Ago, That's How I'm Feeling, Bless Yourself. There's quite a few. I don't find one song that is a filler song that I actually skip when I'm listening to this, whether I'm streaming it or playing the record. In my previous videos, I've actually, or maybe on some live streams, I've stated that I am not a big fan of pressings that come from Third Man Records. This is probably the exception. I think probably all of Jack White's records are impeccably pressed, no issues whatsoever, flat, quiet, and it sounds fantastic. Bernie Grumman mastering it, loads of bottom end, really like an alive record. So highly regarded, highly suggested, highly recommended, Jack White, No Name. And from the most high profile record of this batch to probably my favorite record of this batch, I'm talking about Brigitte Calls Me Baby, The Future Is Our Way Out, also came out at the beginning of August. A few weeks ago, I posted a video talking at length about this fantastic album, one of my favorite albums of the year so far. Check out the video on my channel about Brigitte Calls Me Baby and The Future Is Our Way Out. The next artist I'd like to talk about in 2022 released one of my favorite albums of the year. The name of that album was Bronco, and the artist is Orville Peck, who a few weeks ago released his 3rd album called Stampede. Orville Peck is Daniel Pitou, finally sheds his fringe mask and goes for a shorter mask, trying to actually give us a glimpse of what he actually looks like. And let's talk about the third offering from Orville Peck. Whereas the previous two albums were steeped in country, I would have to say Bronco is, for me, seemed more like retro country, inspired by Johnny Cash, not modern day country. This album still has the country vibe, but it has a lot of other tracks in where, let's call them crossover tracks. The whole concept of this album, Orville Peck explained, is that he wanted to make an album of duets. All of the 15 songs on this album are duets, but he wanted all of these songs to be a 50-50 collaboration with those artists. And apart from the 4 cover songs that are on here, he co-wrote with these artists all of the remaining songs. Let's talk about first the 4 cover songs, mostly very faithful to the originals. The first one is actually the opening track of the album with a duet with Willie Nelson. It is a reinterpretation of a Ned Sublet's song from '82, which Willie Nelson also covered in 2006. Here he's a guest on Orville Peck's version of Cowboys Are Secretly Fond of Each Other. Another cover, which is a duet with Elton John, is the Elton John song Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting. Papa Was a Rodeo, another cover, this time a song by Stephen Merritt on the 69 Love Songs album by the Magnetic Fields. And here he sings it actually with Molly Tuttle and Golden Highway. Probably of the 4 cover songs, whereas the others are faithful pretty much in arrangement to the originals, this one actually is a very good country interpretation, whereas the previous one, the original, was more of like I want to call it indie lullaby. And then the closing song of the album with duet with TJ Osborne, Rhinestone Cowboy, Larry Weiss song, also made famous by Glenn Campbell, reinterpreted only recently by Bruce Springsteen. Let's talk about the crossover songs. A pop dance crossover with Kylie Minogue and Diplo. There's also a Latin flavored, a reggaeton with Bu Quaron, and that is on Miénteme. And probably one of my favorite tracks of the album, the song with Beck, reminiscent of Elvis circa 1970 with those flashy horns. The other crossover song is more of like an R&B soul with the fantastic Teddy Swims, and that is called Ever You're Gone. The remaining songs, I would have to say, all are of an outstanding level, except for maybe a couple I would have left off. The Where Are We Now with Mickey Guyton, and the pop song with Noah Cyrus, How Far Will We Take It? And now let's talk about the pressing. What a nightmare. I pre-ordered the glow in the dark, I know. I wanted to take a chance. Maybe I've never had a glow in the dark record, so I wanted to give it a try. Big mistake. Glow in the dark, very similar to the same type of surface noise, background noise that you hear on picture disc. That was the first one to get returned. Tried my luck with the standard version, which is a bone colored, like an off-white version. And that one, along with the current one that I have, the violet version from Barnes & Noble, all have the same problem. They all have, in the first track of pretty much all 4 sides, this is a double album, have non-fill, which is that crackling noise, like a kind of like a rip that you hear for a few seconds, and a little frustrating. I've been through multiple copies of the bone white, been through 2 copies of the violet. I've kind of resigned myself that I'll never be able to hear a noise-free version of this album. Maybe down the line, if they make a black vinyl version, that one will be better, but I want to say it was pressed at GZ Media, not 100% sure, but Warner, shame on you for picking a plant that had very bad quality control. So buyer beware. Fun album, definitely. If you like Orville Peck, you will like this. Give it a spin. Orville Peck, Stampede. Next up was actually a surprise for me. I wasn't expecting much from this next album. Also because this band has been around for over 25 years, maybe 26 years. And I was a big fan of them at the beginning of their career, late 90s, early 2000. Then I got the feeling that they lost some of their songwriting spark and maybe just was not interested in that type of music anymore. So a few years ago, they released 10 songs, which piqued my interest, and I listened to this new album, and I was very, very surprised to actually liking it a lot. A solid release from the band, Scottish band. This is their 10th album, the Scottish band Travis, and their new album is LA Times. This album cover is phenomenal. I love this picture. It is a picture of Victor Heights in downtown LA, and I think this sums up the whole mood of the album. Evening shot in kind of like a desolate part of town. I think I kind of identified the music on here with the picture on the cover. So what are Travis like? Indie pop, right? Maybe they were probably the last of the Britpop movement of the late 90s. Infectious melodies almost always turn into like these mini anthems, and they consistently deliver on this album. Actually, I should say Fran Healy, who is the leader, main songwriter of Travis, definitely delivers. Some of my favorite songs: Raise the Bar features backup vocals by Brandon Flowers from The Killers, as well as Chris Martin from Coldplay. LA Times, probably my favorite track, the most unusual track of the album, inspired by actually a scene that Fran Healy saw near the recording studio where they recorded this album. And it's a spoken stream of consciousness kind of rap, not sung except for the chorus la la la's, and a very touching ballad, another one of my favorites, Live It All Again, in which Fran Healy recounts the end of his relationship with his wife of 20 plus years. Produced by Tony Hoffer, who produced in the past Peck and Supergrass. Great pressing, flat, no noise. If you like Travis, definitely a return to form. Maybe you want to give them a shot, stream them first if you're not familiar with their music. The album is called LA Times. Earlier in the video, I mentioned Jack White's No Name album as the most high profile release of this batch of records that I am talking to you about. But in reality, within the next genre, which is country, this album is probably the most high profile, the most anticipated country album of this year. The follow-up to her award-winning Bell Bottom Country from last year. She won the Album of the Year at the CMAs, at the ACM, at the Grammys. She won Best Country Album for Bell Bottom Country this year. She returns, just released last week, actually a few days ago. Her third album on a major label. It's called Whirlwind, and I am talking about Lainey Wilson. As opposed to Orville Peck, the album we spoke about earlier, yes, he's country, but more of I like to call it maybe fusion country, because he explores and branches out into different genres on his latest album. This is a thoroughly country album. Country, probably in the sense of, I like to call it maybe modern country, contemporary country. And it's referenced actually in one of the songs on her album called Country's Cool Again. Almost kind of like a jab at the fact that country now has become so big. It has always been big, but I think it's more mainstream popular big now than it has been probably in the last 10 years. Lainey Wilson, songwriter, classic storytelling, modern influences, but also that classic country charm. Her voice, she can be sassy, she can be tender, show her more vulnerable side, excellent vocalist. And on this album, yes, she doesn't stray too much away from the modern country sound, but she does have some pop leanings, especially on the title track, Whirlwind, and also a little funky vibe on the track called Ring Finger. Actually, it is quite hilarious, the lyrics of Ring Finger. But where I think Lainey Wilson excels, and probably these are my favorite tracks of the album, are the ballads. And they're actually power ballads. I think it's called Call a Cowboy, as well as Broken Hearts Still Beat, with these sweeping string arrangements. But I personally love Call a Cowboy. Very fine-tuned lyrics, immediate hooks, thoroughly enjoyable. You will hear a lot about this album. Lainey Wilson is here to stay. This version is the Urban Outfitters variant on tan vinyl. And interesting thing, not advertised on the hype sticker, but I'll let you in on a little secret. There is a bonus track that's not advertised, and it is actually the stripped down version of Whirlwind, which I kind of tend to prefer actually. So be on the lookout for the Urban Outfitters version with that extra track. Lainey Wilson, Whirlwind. And the final release I'd like to talk to you about is of an artist that is very, very dear to me. I have been following his career, I want to say for the past 40 plus years, since I think it was 1981 or 1982, when I first heard the song, the mega hit throughout the world, their reinterpretation of Tainted Love. I'm talking about Soft Cell is the name of the group that he originally started in, and the artist is Marc Almond. His latest album is his 27th solo album. I Am Not Alone. It is a collection of covers. Now, if there is anyone in the music industry that has mastered the art of covers, that is Marc Almond. There is something about the way Marc Almond reinterprets other people's songs, the choice of songs whenever he chooses to reinterpret covers, and he's done that many times throughout his career. Actually, he first started off with Tainted Love, or during his solo career, he did a duet reinterpreting Gene Pitney's Something's Gotten Hold of My Heart. He's done entire albums dedicated to Jacques Brel, the French songwriter. Russian folk songs. He's reinterpreted songs by Lou Reed, by Scott Walker. He's a master at reinterpreting other people's songs. No one really can come close to the way Marc Almond reinterprets songs. Sometimes reinterpreting them, reinventing them. In this album, I actually read a quote about his attitude towards this batch of songs, which I wasn't familiar with a lot of them. Actually, I had to go back, research who were the original artists that sung these songs on here, and I was quite surprised. And he said that, yes, they're very faithful. The arrangements are very faithful to the originals. And he believes that way too much emphasis is on reinterpreting and reinventing, rearranging songs that are perfectly written, that are beautifully executed in their original form. The important part really is to making them your own, and he certainly does, even on this collection. He goes through and he tackles songs by Mahalia Jackson, Colin Blunstone. He duets with Ian Anderson from Yes on a King Crimson song. The title song is actually a Paul Anka song, I'm Not Alone, that was made famous by Sammy Davis Jr. He's an original. I Am Not Alone, the 27th album by Marc Almond. And those were the 6 albums that I had for you today. I hope I was able to give you an idea of what they sound like. Sometimes I'm able to deliver the essence of the record. I hope I did this time. Please leave comments below if you've already listened to these records, if you have additional thoughts, or even have maybe a question about one or two of them or all of them. I always appreciate all of you that subscribe to the channel. It is free, so for those of you that have not yet subscribed, it doesn't cost you anything to just click that subscription button and the notification bell if you want to be alerted to any future videos that I may drop. That wraps it up for today. I hope to see you on my next video, and I hope you're enjoying your summer. Thanks again for watching. Bye.